Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr appear to be the most likely options to be the Jets quarterback in 2023, but there is an interesting scenario that could land Lamar Jackson in New York. What would it take to get the former MVP? Welcome to Jets Talk. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, I go live every Monday for my live call-in show, so if you don't like what I'm saying here on the channel, there's your time to let me hear it. And then Tuesday, we come back with our Talkin' Jets panel, myself, O'Leary, and Green Bean. So ask us all your Jet-related questions, but let's move on to today's topic of the day, and that is one, Lamar Jackson and possibly the New York Jets. What sort of situation has to happen to land the former MVP quarterback with the Jets? This is an interesting situation because there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and we saw this posted to Lamar's Instagram story the other day. No matter how much genuine love you show, it'll never be enough. It looks like so F it. With a big bomb. And it's going off. So this, clearly, he's in a contract dispute with the Baltimore Ravens. He's trying to get as much money as he possibly can. He saw a lot of money get dished out to a lot of other players. I mean, the Ravens just traded for a linebacker from the Bears, whose name is escaping me at this particular point in time, and they just gave him like $20 million a year. So Lamar Jackson's probably not feeling super loved right now. And by all reports, they are $100 million off on salary. And I think that's more of a jarring number than it necessarily is. I get the feeling that $100 million difference is 2 years. It's a 2-year guarantee. They're probably guaranteeing him. I think I heard it was like $130 million, and he wants, the 230, the Deshaun Watson-esque deal. I know we've seen this populate before. 5-year deal for Deshaun Watson, $230 million fully guaranteed. Apparently, Lamar Jackson turned down a 5-year, $250 million deal, but only $133 million was guaranteed. So if I'm Lamar Jackson, I'm looking at that Deshaun Watson trade. I'm saying, I've got a squeaky clean record compared to that guy. I've got a league MVP. That guy doesn't. Why should I get paid less than him? Like, if you're talking about contracts, like I clearly have proven myself more than Deshaun Watson. And it's not completely, an apples to apples comparison, but I completely understand where Lamar Jackson's coming from. And he deserves every right to ask for that kind of money. But on the other side of that coin, I get why teams are afraid of Lamar Jackson. And it's the injuries and all that other stuff. And, he's asking for a ton of money. You got to give up a bunch of picks. And you saw what Watson went for. It was like 3 first-round picks and other players or other picks. And then you saw Russell Wilson get traded for a bunch of picks and players. You saw, maybe what could be an Aaron Rodgers trade. There's a lot going on with the moving and shaking of different quarterbacks. And Lamar Jackson, to me, has always been a quarterback. If I'm the Ravens, am I going to trade an MVP quarterback that's 26 years old that is pretty pissed off at me within the AFC? That seems like it's probably wrong. So what they're looking at doing is using one of the 2 franchise tags on Lamar Jackson. There's the exclusive franchise tag, which would be a $45 million tag, and you would own Lamar Jackson's rights, and you could shop him to who you want to shop him to. Then there's the non-exclusive franchise tag, which is $32 million. The reason they split that up is they have the average of the top 5 over 5 years for the non-exclusive and the average of the top 5 over the current year for the exclusive franchise tag. So that's why there's the difference in the 2 years, or the 2 different amounts of money for the 2 different tags. With the non-exclusive tag, what that allows you to do is you can allow Lamar to go out and find whatever contract he deems fair. And he comes back to the Ravens. He said, hey, look, see, team X, Y, and Z offered me this contract. I would like you to match it. And the Ravens get that opportunity. They can match that contract that the other team offered, and then they would retain Lamar Jackson on a contract that is his market rate. That's the value of hitting him with the non-exclusive tag. When you're $100 million off, and you're the Ravens, and you're thinking, I don't know if there's a team out there that's going to give Lamar the money and guarantees that he's willing to do, and I don't want to be the one looking foolish for doing it when, maybe his best offer out on the table is $180 million instead of $250 million or something along those lines. So that's the thought process there. Let Lamar go out, find his contract, bring it back to you so maybe you could retain him. Now, the other side of that coin is if someone does hit Lamar's contract demands, then he's going to be able to say, okay, well, you got to match this. This is $250 million. They decided to do it fully guaranteed. I would imagine the Ravens at that point would take the 2 first-round picks that they have coming to them. If you use the non-exclusive tag, you can decline taking the first refusal. You refuse the contract that was offered, and you get that team's 2 first-round picks. So in this weird hypothetical situation where, let's say Aaron Rodgers goes back to the Packers or decides to retire, Derek Carr chooses any other team other than the New York Jets, and the Jets are kind of left stuck. Are you going with a Ryan Tannehill? Are you going with a Jimmy Garoppolo? Or is there a situation where maybe the former Baltimore scout in Joe Douglas reaches out to a few friends and says, hey, what's going on with Lamar Jackson? Let's bring him in for an interview. Let's talk to him, and let's see if we can get a contract worked out, because if you can get Lamar Jackson for 2 first-round picks, that's looking pretty good. That is really nice. That's got to hop up on your list as far as things go. And I would imagine Lamar Jackson, if it's 2 first-round picks to get him, and you're giving him the contract, that may put him into people's number 1 overall option for quarterback for the New York Jets. And I can understand why. The boom prospect of Lamar Jackson is astronomical. You're talking 26-year-old MVP quarterback. He could be your guy for the next 10 years, and he's already proven to be able to do it in the NFL. I see that benefit. That is very exciting. And for 2 first-round picks, it makes it a lot more reasonable. The issue is, if we're looking at it as a more reasonable trade scenario to give up 2 firsts for Lamar plus the contract, that means every other team that would have possibly been considering him before is also going to be considering him for those 2 first-round pick options. So in my mind, I'm saying, okay, well, what happens? So the Ravens are going to have the opportunity to let him shop his contract, and he's going to find out where wants to pay him the most. Now, I've always sort of fallen on the idea that I think the Ravens make the most, or sorry, not the Ravens. I think the Ravens keeping him or him moving to the Atlanta Falcons makes the most sense. Last year, the Atlanta Falcons offered Deshaun Watson, offered up all the picks for Deshaun Watson, then offered up the contract that Deshaun Watson wanted, with the exception of the fully guaranteed money in the event he's convicted of all the the issues he was dealing with, where the Browns said, "Oh, we don't care. We'll give you the money regardless. We think you'll be fine and it won't matter." So the Falcons were not willing to do that. The Browns were. So with Lamar, who has a squeaky clean resume, who has an MVP under his belt, I would have to imagine they're looking at this guy and they're licking their chops and they're saying, we could pair this guy who loves tight ends with what many people consider a generational prospect in Kyle Pitts as tight end. And then you have Drake London, who's got a massive wingspan, someone who maybe could, really elevate Lamar's passing game with such a wide catch radius. I can understand the appeal there. With the Falcons, I think if you're Baltimore, you're looking at the possibility of sending him to the NFC. That's probably the most preferred destination. Not to mention they have the number 8 overall pick. So I think, for me, it's far more likely that Lamar ends up going to the Falcons for the same or more contract that Watson got for those 2 first-round picks. Or the other situation that you could find yourself in is you give up, this contract, and the Ravens say, we're going to match it, but the relationship is so dead that you now have to give up the picks to try and get him, which is probably a little less likely, because then I guess Lamar could say, hey, screw it, I'm going to stay here. It's interesting, right? Lamar is going to fetch more in a trade than the 2 first-round picks that the non-exclusive tag would justify or would get you if he were to be signed away. But the non-exclusive tag also allows you to see what he's worth, because you're talking a lot of money. This isn't like a linebacker or a safety where you're guaranteeing 2 years at let's even call it $20 million, like a really high linebacker contract. No, you're talking 3 times that. You're talking $50 to $60 million a year. This is a crazy, crazy contract that you're looking to get yourself into. And I don't see how the Jets could get it done. Money-wise, Woody Johnson's going to throw money at the quarterback position, and this could, in theory, be an option. Lamar could like what the Jets offer him. But for the Falcons, you would have to beat the Falcons' offer on contract and the Ravens as far as wanting to match it. So you have to go above and beyond to try and get this guy. But if you're willing to go that much higher than the in the contract, just so you can get him for the 2 firsts instead of having to get him for maybe 3 firsts and change. It's an interesting situation. Now, would I want the Jets to do that? If there's a situation where you can get Lamar Jackson, I think you absolutely have to explore it. This guy is way too electric. The injuries definitely do concern me. You have a grade 2 sprain in his ankle and his knee over the course of the last 2 years. And I think, what has he missed? 10 games, 5 games over each of the last 2 years, plus the 1 playoff game. I get the concern. You may have an explosive offense for like a very small window of time with Lamar if you're concerned about the injuries, but it's like at a level that can compete with a Burrow, a Herbert, a Mahomes, where maybe if you're getting an Aaron Rodgers at the end of his career, he's already hitting that downslope. A Derek Carr, is he kind of getting you caught in that Kirk Cousins middle ground? Like maybe I can understand if someone thought he's not good enough to win with, but Lamar solves a lot of those problems. He just creates a few different ones with the injuries, and it ties you up a long time with the salary cap. For me, I don't particularly love Lamar Jackson. This is like the final straw, Hail Mary like attempt if everything else goes sideways. Like, and I don't even know if I can even get to that point, because I'm almost at the point where like I really like the roster we have right now. Like I like Sauce, I like AVT, I like Brees, I like Garrett Wilson, and you know even Elijah Moore and all those other guys that are under contract. And to me, I would almost rather run it back with like a Tannehill or something like that and try to hope for a future where we could retain those guys than bring in Lamar, who possibly has an injury concern, on a massive contract, giving up all the picks. And then since you're giving up the massive contract, you're not going to be able to sign all those guys. Like I think we have the benefit of having so many good young players that you're in this weird flux of like maybe not wanting to pay quite as much for so long. Aaron Rodgers is a lot of money, very short amount of time. Derek Carr, less money, longer stretch of time. Lamar Jackson, lots of money, long stretch of time. So there's different positives and negatives that can go on with each one of these teams. I really think there's a realistic shot he's going to either the Falcons or the Panthers. Those are the 2 teams I kind of look at. The Panthers maybe make a little less sense, but the Panthers at least have a high draft pick. The Falcons, I say it because they have the highest draft pick. I can realistically see someone trading because I think the Falcons are going to be just out of striking distance for a team, for guys like Bryce Young, Will Levis, and CJ Stroud. And then who knows, maybe Atlanta winds up replacing Lamar Jackson with a player who seems to be shooting up draft boards in Anthony Richardson out of Florida. If I were Baltimore, that's the trade I would take. I would get the 2 firsts, move on from Lamar, let Atlanta take, the headache off your hands and replace Lamar's production with someone who has freak athletic skills. I think the relationship with Lamar is too far fractured at this point with Baltimore that they're not going to be able to mend it. So just get whatever you can get for him and, set yourself up for the best possible future moving forward. And whether that is hitting him with the exclusive tag and then trading him exclusively to another team getting more picks, or allowing yourself the opportunity to maybe match a contract if you think it's not too bad. I think the Ravens, I don't think they're realistically going to use the non-exclusive franchise tag unless they've totally reserved the right of like, hey, we're totally fine with taking less compensation in the event we can get our quarterback on a cheaper contract. That might be the cost analysis that they're kind of going through right there. So, guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Do you want Lamar Jackson on the New York Jets? Do you see him as option 1, 2, or 3, or not an option at all? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.